Hey guys, it's the Friction here, Patton the Tank 1-2, have you call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World Tanks. Merry Christmas, first and foremost. I know it's probably been a long year, but a short year. No, I don't know. 2023 has been pretty good for me. A lot of things have happened. Content-wise, I really haven't done all that much. Probably one of the weaker years, and especially since I'm going to be stopping World Tanks content in the beginning or at the end of March of 2024. But yeah, that is not what we want to focus on today. Today we want to focus on the Patton the Tank. This is the tier 9 gift that Wargaming have gifted us players. Everyone who logs into the game will receive this tank at least for the next 8 or 7 days. And to be fair, today we're going to be evaluating if this really is a good gift or a bad gift. And I can pretty much reach forward right now and I can give you guys a little bit of a quick rundown and say that I think this is a gift that is really nice to have, but a gift that a lot of players will probably not be using all that much because there is not really a lot of reason to be playing this tank if you have other options available. We're going to be checking the Patton tank and we're going to be comparing it a little bit to the T-54 heavy tank, because for me personally this vehicle is much more a heavy tank than it is a medium tank. Even though it is designated as a medium, in my opinion it's much more of a heavy that is really badly armored in certain ways, but it has the mobility that makes it kind of interesting in certain ways. But sadly, it has a lot of flaws, and I think we should probably address all of them in this video. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is the status of the tank. This is not a premium vehicle. This is basically a special tank. Special tanks are these reward vehicles. You don't earn any premium credits. You don't earn any bonds with this vehicle, sadly. And I think this is where Wargaming kind of missed the mark. Speaking of the characteristics of this vehicle, in general, this tank is not that great. And it would have been a very pleasant surprise if Wargaming would have actually given us this vehicle as a premium and not just a special tank. I think that would have been a really nice gesture. But I can understand why they didn't do it, and I think we can and should be thankful enough that we get a tier 9 vehicle. But the characteristics paint a little bit of a picture of a tank that will be sitting in the garage for a lot of players, because selling this thing won't get you any credits at all. As you can see, if I would sell everything that I have on this vehicle, with the vehicle itself, I would only gain 35,000 credits, and that is for basically the ammunition that I have on this vehicle right now. So sadly, you cannot sell this if it's not a vehicle you like to play. So I would say 2 points where Wargaming did already kind of miss the mark for me personally. But at the same time, it's a free tier 9 vehicle, right? So let's talk about the looks real fast before we go into the characterization. I think this thing looks pretty damn neat. It reminds me a little bit of the M60. It reminds me of the T110E5. It reminds me of the Renegade. And it reminds me of the T-54 heavy tank. Now, this thing was not particularly good. And the Patton tank sadly goes into the same category, maybe even worse in certain other regards. This is a medium tank, don't forget that. Now let's talk about the 120mm gun that you get on this bad boy. This 120mm gun is pretty interesting. We're going to be comparing it to the 120mm gun on the T-54 heavy tank, because they're both very similar in a lot of regards except for one, and that is the alpha damage. Now the 120 on the T-54 is better in terms of alpha damage with 450. You have 400 on the tier 9 medium. You have 242mm of penetration with AP rounds and 300 on the heat rounds for both of them. So you can see the guns are very similar, but you have a better rate of fire on the Patton tank than on the T-54. Now both of them don't really sport decent or good DPM, sadly. And you can see that the dispersion values on both guns are not that fantastic. Yeah, you have 2.5 second aim time and 0.4 dispersion at 100 meters with the 120mm gun on the Patton tank. So sadly, both of these tanks do not sport the best guns. They are still fine in my personal opinion, but they are not something you'd write home about. Now, with the right equipment, such as innovative loading system right here, which is, I think, what is it, Bond equipment? No clue. Could be Bond equipment. Not entirely sure if it's Bond. No, it's improved equipment. Sorry, I always forget the logo, which is for Bond, Bounty, and improved. Sorry about that. So yeah, you can see 2,529 DPM. We can work with that with Brothers in Arms and everything in there. But 242mm of pen, I think that's pretty decent at tier 9. 300mm of heat pen is okay. You'll be facing tier 10 tanks, and I think 300mm will get pretty outdated as soon as you hit like one of those super heavy vehicles. You just have to kind of look where you can hit them. Now let's move on to the hit points and the hull armor on this vehicle. Now this tank has 1,700 hit points. Now the hit points on this vehicle are basically what you get on the medium tank, and that is a bit of a shame. Now look at the size of this thing. Now look at the size of the T-54 Heavy. Both of them are basically exactly the same size, very tall tanks, very large vehicles, and you do not have the additional hit points that you have on the Heavy. Well, it's actually just 60 HP more, but still, at least it's a heavy vehicle. Now, hull armor on this thing, it is a M48 Patton hull, I think, if I recall correctly. 152 at the front, 76 on the side, 38 on the back. So generally speaking, you're looking at armor that is not going to be super competitive and super reliable when you're fighting in close quarter combat, but at least it's well enough armor to bounce quite a few shots at distance. Now, there is one thing. If you're side-scraping with this thing, you can see that the engine deck does appear to be very easily detectable and a very juicy target to shoot at, and you can actually go right through there, so keep that in mind. The turret armor is decent, 203mm at the front, 76 on the side, 51 on the back, but there is one very, very big problem on this tank, and you can see it's the commander's cupola with the machine gun pointing out. This is the cupola that we are expecting of American vehicles, and sadly it's just as bad on this vehicle as it is on some other American vehicles. That means very easy place to pen, 70mm thickness overall, and it's just very easy to go through. So armor-wise, it is a tank with some serious downsides in terms of survivability. Mobility-wise, it's not the best either. For a medium tank, I think it's rather sluggish. It is a very tall medium. It is an American medium, so you expect it not to be the fastest, but when an M46 Patton kind of runs rings around you with 48 kph, which isn't great, and 44.21 degrees per second traverse speed, you're looking at a fairly unresponsive medium tank that will sadly not get you from point A to B in a very quick fashion. But it's still fast enough to be better than the T-54 Heavy, but this is a heavy tank, and you know, the characteristics, they're pretty close to one another, so yeah, kind of disappointing. What is also disappointing about this thing is that the view range is pretty atrocious. 405 meters view range with all of my crew skills. Now, let's take a quick look at the base view range, and the base view range is only 380 meters, so basically you're getting yourself a vehicle that overall is not very good, at least from the characteristics. So how does it play in battle? You can see I have basically gone for a configuration that gives me the best possible DPM, as well as a little bit of additional aim speed and the dispersion reduction, because this vehicle does have pretty bad bloom and dispersion is pretty awful when you're driving around. But it's a vehicle I've enjoyed. I've played let's say about 3 or 4 games in it, and I've enjoyed the tank. I wasn't doing very well, yeah, but it's kind of a fun tank to play. So let's, without further ado, jump into 1 or 2 gameplays, and we can talk a little bit more about the strengths and the weaknesses, and if it is a tank that I would deem to be a fair present, a fair gift, or if it is kind of a naughty gift that Wargaming have handed over to us. as always, we have two replays ready. One of them is the absolute ideal scenario where you can play this tank as the top dog, going up against only a couple of tier 8s, only a few tier 9s, and mostly tier 7 vehicles. Now we're playing on mines, so you guys already know what we're going to be doing on this map. We're gonna go play the middle, and we're gonna go contest the top of the map and the hill. Now, one thing I have to be honest about this tank is that it looks really cool. I think it looks very aesthetically pleasing, and that's probably just because I'm a very big T110E5 fan. But yeah, as you can see, it just doesn't really feel like a medium tank because of the huge size. The gun is already pretty long as well. It has much more the feel of a heavy. So right there you could see one thing, and that is that we kind of lack the rate of fire to be able to be effective against several targets going up the hill. But we've already been able to do quite a bit of damage here, getting up to 1,234 damage. But we also get penned by an S1, a Stridswagen S1 all the way back at the corner or at the back of the map. And what you can see right here is that this gun can be reliable enough if you have the right crew and if you have the right equipment pieces on it, and it can do some serious damage if there are targets that you can shoot. And as you can see, we are already at almost 2,000 damage, and what is really nice is that we just had an object 430 that drove past us onto the hill and then literally dropped down on the other side of the hill into the enemy position, like at F7, F8, where he spotted several enemy vehicles. This player sadly had a disconnect, but it looked really funny because I thought he was going to go take the hill and then, you know, engage the Saladin and maybe the other tank that was on top. Like I think it was the Object 416, exactly that the tank that we actually killed. But right now you can see there's only a tier 8 British light tank up there right now, so I'm telling the Lorraine 40T to go up the hill and you know, to take that position, because it will give us quite a bit of flexibility in helping our team out and hopefully securing a victory in this match. You can see the enemy Patton tank did notice that we're going to go for the hill, and yeah, if you're in such a situation where you can just face tank a light tank, I think even a tank with bad armor such as the Patton tank won't really have any issues. But sadly, we have to talk about the gun handling. Gun handling on this thing is not the best. I think gun handling on this is subpar. It's okay. I think you can work with it, but it's just not good enough. As you can see, we are just a little bit too slow to get that reticle on target. It takes too long, and as soon as artillery finds you, oh my god, you're gonna have a very, very hard time. 2 tier 7 artilleries just knock off 400 HP off of us very, very quickly, and now we have to be very cautious that we don't immediately lose all the remaining hit points. That's something you have to realize, that your armor on this thing is just not very good. I overextend that side script right there, and that T29 puts APCR round right into the side of us, and that costs us another 261 HP in a game where you can see that we are already down by 3,000 HP against the enemy team. But not all is lost. We have already dealt quite a bit of damage. The gun depression, the 10 degrees that you have, are a really nice feature. Mobility-wise, the tank isn't the worst either. I think it's fast enough now for you to have an impact on a small map like Mines. But on a bigger map, I think the size of this thing would probably be a bit of an issue. It is rather large, it's rather clunky, and you should definitely not play this as a medium tank, because this is much more a heavy tank. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to stay away from the tortoise, not get perma-spotted by the 50 meter radius, because I'm worried about artillery slapping the shit out of me if they spot me. You can see artillery just killed the AMX M445, and we have a KV-3 coming up the hill right now. I make a little bit of a misplay here. This is actually quite a large misplay. I wanted to hit the Alpine Tiger, but I should have expected the KV-3 to move up here. And once again, I think we can talk about the bad armor. He actually just went right through our side of the tracks. But thankfully we do reload fast enough and we put another shot into it. Overall, 2 very nice rolls, or at least 2 400 damage rolls against a tier 7 vehicle. That is obviously very brutal, but as you can see, we are now a clear one-shot for anyone in this matchup. That means artillery, if they splash us, if they hit us in the face, we are going to have a pretty tough time. So far, so good. It still looks like we are on equal playing field, but the issue is just that we barely have any HP on our team, and the enemy team has a lot of HP, since they still have a couple of tank destroyers that have not been spotted yet, the SC-130PM and the Slitzwagen S1. But I can say, you know, at distance, at a range, this tank is actually not too bad. If nothing is shooting you, and you're not reliant on your armor, this tank can do some pretty decent damage, especially in a tier 8 matchup like this. You can be pretty effective on a hill like this with 10 degrees of gun depression. Right now we're just waiting for the T-29 to make a mistake and peak once again, but I think this T-29 was... I don't think he peaked again. The Tortoise did turn around, and the Tortoise in the end was going to be our downfall. Sadly, I can reach that far ahead already, because this Tortoise now is going to make his way towards us. And what I'm informing my team about is that the Tortoise is now looking towards me instead of the SC-100 and the Jagdtiger prototype. Now, that would have been the perfect time for both of these guys to actually flank the Tortoise, but they are obviously reluctant to push because they are scared of the S1 sitting back at the J7, which is also the case, and they're scared of the T-29, that he might also have a little bit of a crossfire if they move in. And you can see the Tortoise has changed his approach once more, but I think this time around he's turned around again and he's moving towards me, or at least he's backing up into me. And you can see the 15 meters radius, so I get proxy spotted. Artillery can now take care of me, and the issue right now is that 10 degrees of gun depression are not good enough to engage him right below me, and I'm not willing to, you know, crest over the ridgeline to get shot by artillery, because I know that both RD pieces do have a little bit of a focus on me. But so far so good. Our team is doing pretty well. They have an Alpine Tiger, which is still almost full HP. If we look over there, 66% HP remaining. And now the HP difference really makes a very big difference in this game. You can see we lose the Chito SP, which is the tier 7 Japanese tank destroyer. And now they're going to go right into our base. Sadly, we lose the Jagdtiger prototype because I think he moved up a bit too far, and the Tortoise did a pretty good job at knocking him out. What is very interesting is that the Lorraine 40 ton dropped down the hill, moved around, engaged the T-29, and with the SC-100M1 managed to kill the T-29, but now we have a Tortoise that is able to take him out of the equation. And now we have a very awkward scenario where we are on top of the hill. We know that the Tortoise is going to be creeping up towards me, and to be fair, I'm hoping that the Alpine Tiger and the SC-130PM now make a play towards our base so that I can actually shoot them in a crossfire. But it turns out the Alpine Tiger and the SC-130PM are playing it rather smart. They're hiding behind rocks, not pushing forward, waiting for the Tortoise to get into position, and that allows them to actually remain alive for a while, because if they moved further forward, I think we would have been able to take him out. So I do know that the Tortoise is going to be coming up the hill any moment now. He's going to be challenging me. I don't want to get down from the hill. I'm trying to see if I can get another shot at the Alpine Tiger over there. Let's see. Yeah, it's not possible. And now we can see that the Tortoise is coming up here. He does get RD'd, I think, any moment now. But we are moving now back to a place where we can hopefully have a little bit of cover fighting the Tortoise. The from artillery and also the vehicle itself. But sadly, right here, as you can see, he knocks us out by shooting an APCR shell right into the top of our turret, going right through the commander's cupola and killing us through the weak spot. Now, sadly, pretty good game in terms of damage, almost 5k damage. With the assisted damage, we're probably looking at a little bit over 5k, maybe almost 6k. So there is a possibility, if you do have a nice lobby and you get lucky every once in a while, you can get into a game where you're able to do a bit of damage. And you can see that in the end, the new premium tier 8, the XM66F, gets knocked out by the SU-130PM. But overall, if you're on a hill and you have a little bit of cover, you can hide your tank, you're going to be able to do quite a bit of damage with this thing. The gun is not very... I would not say it's the best gun, but it's reliable enough to get you the damage that you need. There's just one big problem, and that is the armor. As you could see, we barely bounced anything. We bounced one shot. I'm not even sure which tank bounced us, but I think it was the Patton, the other Patton, the Patton tank that we were facing at the beginning. Every other shot went either right through us or through the side armor, or we were angling it wrong, and then artillery also did quite a number on us. So sadly, 1,700 hit points is not that great, but you kind of have to go with certain equipment to help your DPM and to help your gun handling a little bit, because the gun handling isn't that great either without equipment, so that you can't really go for hardlining or something like that. Hardliner, where you can actually get more HP out of your vehicle. But this was kind of the ideal scenario where you can really do the damage, where you don't have to resort to premium rounds, at least until you face the Tortoise. And the next game, we're really going to see how this thing fares in close quarter combat when it has to face tier 9 and tier 10 opponents. And I can tell you guys, it's not going to be very pretty. So the second game isn't exactly much worse in terms of enemies that you're facing. They're only tier 8 vehicles, some tier 9s and some tier 10s. But this step up is already more than enough for the Patton tank, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. So first and foremost, I still kind of play this tank a little bit more on the conservative side. I play it further back. I don't rush as the first tank into combat, and you can see right there I'm trying to shoot down this this little fighter plane. What is also really cool about this map, real fast, let me just get up there. There's like a full-fledged, full-on engagement going on over here, like a naval battle where you have these different destroyers and battleships engaging one another, and there are like planes coming in, dropping bombs over there. A plane is getting shot down. So this is a very interesting map with very cool side features, but it's a terrible map in the general design of it all. I really don't like this map whenever I have to play it, and sadly it just doesn't seem to be a very intuitive map for my personal taste. Either way, we're playing the left side, we're going with the other medium tanks, and it is a pretty stale and it's a very stale kind of engagement where we're just staying in one place. We're not moving a lot, because pushing with this tank, even with support, is kind of difficult and dangerous, because you just do not have enough armor reliably to move out in the open. So you really have to choose the right moments to make a play. But every once in a while, such as right here, you do have a moment where you can shoot a Bourrasque, and you know, the gun is reliable enough to allow you to do a little bit of damage. But you do not want to get spotted with this thing, because as you can see on the left to me, this Wally the Lumberjack player is not having a very good time with his Patton tank, as he's getting absolutely roasted, or he was getting roasted by artillery prior, got shot at by the Bourrasque, and also got shot at from the front. And as you can see, he was penned right through the turret. Now, one thing I have noticed over the last couple of matches I played with this thing is that the 203 millimeters of armor that you have on the turret does not always suffice against tank destroyers with a lot of penetration. Now, tank destroyers such as the E4 or maybe an Object 704 or an Object 268, when they do load premium rounds, well, you're going to have a pretty tough time bouncing that stuff from your turret. And I got penned 3 times through the turret in like one match. And that was not a lot of fun. As you can see, the Patton tank right here, he does get spotted and he gets almost annihilated. And we're now just trying to engage this Burrasque, but as you can see, it's a very static fight. Not a lot of movement on this flank. The enemy team has gotten themselves into a position where they're kind of trying and poking every once in a while, hoping to get some easy damage. This Patton tank has already lost the majority of his HP. I'm still in full HP. Then we have a Burrasque over here, an American tank destroyer, and another Patton tank further up front. But we're slowly but surely losing the right side, and once again we're losing by a very large amount of HP. They have 5,000 HP more than me, more than us, and I decide to take that moment to go over to the other flank and help out, because as you can see right now, this side of the flank is just not holding or not doing anything. It's not a lot of dynamism. So, mobility-wise, this tank is decent enough, but I would say the mobility is kind of that of an other heavy tank, maybe an E5 even. It's very similar to one another. Yeah, you can see the gun sometimes is reliable, but when the target is too far away, at further distances, this tank becomes a little bit of a chore to play. Let's put it that way. I think that the gun is perfectly fine at close to mid-ranges, but you don't really want to play this tank in close quarter combat because it's just so unreliable with its armor that you only want to play it as a support vehicle or at medium ranges where you can shoot tanks that aren't that far away. You can see this area right here, this range, this T8 32 and the CC1 MK2, they're at a perfect distance for us to engage, and the rate of fire is not the best, but it's still fast enough to, you know, maybe allowing you to get 1 or 2 shots into vehicles when they're pushing, and I think you can work with that. But now the real test is going to be the close quarter engagement. We're going to go in and help the Object 705A and the XMF, because maybe we can still win this game if we manage to kill the mouse and the E75. As you can see, I'm loading heat rounds with the 300 millimeters of penetration just to be able to go through the mouse or the E75, because penning a mouse with 242 millimeters of pen is just not going to happen. You can see going through the lower plate on the E75, very easy, very good shot. We get him out of the game. The rate of fire is okay, but it's not great. And as you can see right there, against the mouse with still 1,155 HP, we are struggling a bit helping this XM. And when you also get a pretty bad roll of 384 or maybe 372 or 360, which can happen since you do have only 400 alpha damage with a single shot, it's going to take quite a while to wear down a mouse, especially if you cannot always penetrate. So what you can see here is in this moment, in this scenario, we're fighting another Patton tank, and you'll see just how unreliable the armor is. Basically, the armor does not work when you're in engagement like this, because they can just overmatch your sides and bounce with the heat round, get absolutely shot right through, and basically the mouse reloads faster than you reload. So overall, not a very good look for the Patton tank. So is it a complete waste of space in your garage? No, it isn't. This tank, if you sell it, you get nothing. So don't sell the vehicle unless you really need the garage slot. I wouldn't sell the vehicle. But other than that, I think it's a tank that can work in certain scenarios, but it will not work most of the time. The armor is just not reliable enough. The gun is just nothing special. You don't have good enough DPM. You know, your mobility is not the best. Your spotting is pretty shoddy as well. Overall, there are better vehicles at tier 9 that you can play than this thing. There isn't really any reason for you to play this thing if you have the T-54 heavy tank available, which is also pretty bad, but which at least is a premium vehicle, makes premium currency or premium credits, and also some bonds. That is something, or that's basically what you're missing out on when you're playing this thing. I don't really understand why Wargaming didn't make it a premium at least. You know, give us the premium credits. You can leave all the characteristics, the stats, how they are. Then it's just a very underwhelming tier 9 premium vehicle. But now it's basically a pointless tier 9 reward vehicle that not a lot of players will be playing after they played a couple of games in it. Still a nice present, but it could have been a much nicer gift if Wargaming at least gave it the premium designation. But that's my thoughts. I would love to hear your opinion on the vehicle. I still enjoy playing it somehow. And yeah, I'm going to be playing this tank a couple of times, maybe even free market if I feel like it. It should probably be as easy free mark because not a lot of players, or a lot of players will be playing this tank, and it's just going to be pretty low. The damage output is not very high, so it should be pretty easy in my opinion. So, I'll see you guys in the next video, and yeah, Merry Christmas, and soon Happy New Year.